now. And I don't see anybody else in the waiting room. So Mayor Polderman, I'll turn it over to you for welcome remarks.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Village of Lytton's community meeting. I believe it's our 8th. While we meet today on a virtual platform, I'd like to recognize the Lytton area, Quaquamsheen, and Enclaclapmic territories where our efforts to return are centered. Before we begin, I'd like to extend a warm welcome to our 2 new councillors, Melissa Michelle and Ross Urquhart. Councillor Gray, Councillor Hay, and I are very happy to have you on our team. Thank you for being here with us tonight. On June 30th, we will commemorate 1 year since the wildfire that devastated our community. It has been an unbelievably difficult year that has taken a toll on all Lytton residents. The last 12 months have been long, challenging, with more obstacles than I ever thought possible. But through it all, the one thing that remained constant was the kindness shown by our community. Every single day, you have all come together to support each other in this recovery process. I cannot truly express my gratitude for each and every one of you. Thank you for continuing to persevere, even when it seemed impossible. Thank you for all your work that has been and continues to be done in our community by staff, residents, volunteers, business agencies, organizations, other levels of government, and neighboring communities. Working together, we'll get through this. I encourage everyone to attend the community event on June 30th at 10 p.m. At the Stein Valley McClapham School and Battlefield. There will be a number of events, visits from agencies, music, and food. It will be a chance for us to come together, share, heal, and move forward together. Yes, it's been a long journey, but every day we're making strategic strides towards recovery and rebuilding. Together, we've accomplished a lot this year. We have our debris cleanup underway. Heritage permitting is in place, and we have the soil remediation going on. We've established the recovery team in partnership with EMBC. We've put in place the Citizens Advisory Select Committee. We've adopted 7 foundational policies and put forward 12 key bylaws. We've completed the financial rebuild and financial statements for 2021. We've received a total of $27.7 million in grant funding for response and recovery to date. We've continued to implement and accomplish the deliverables outlined in the short-term recovery plan. We've established consistent communication channels for residents, which includes website, social media, text message alerts, and citizen update newsletter. We've held a by-election and recently sworn in 2 councillors. We've engaged Blackwell and Associates to complete a new community wildfire protection plan. We've engaged Dave Mitchell and Associates to complete a fire services review. And finally, as you'll learn later today, we've hired a permanent CAO, Michael Baker, who we welcome to Lytton. He will start on June the 27th. There's a lot more work ahead of us, but I'm hopeful for the progress made so far and for what we have to look forward to in the coming month. Last month, Minister Blair committed $416 million to rebuild homes and businesses lost in BC's 2021 fires, which includes Lytton. So we are expecting additional financial support to become available soon. We expect all debris to be cleaned up by the end of the year and critical infrastructure to be repaired by then as well. I'm hopeful that we will see residents beginning rebuild late this year or early next year. In addition, we'll soon be putting out a request for proposals on a new official community plan. Once we have a successful proponent, we will begin collaborating with all of you to determine the best path forward for Lytton. Finally, on October 15th, we will have a municipal election. We have come a long way, but I'm hopeful for our future together. We have a number of speakers here tonight, including elected officials, partners, agencies, and staff to provide you with the latest information on key initiatives taking place in Lytton. I want to thank them all for taking the time to be with us here tonight. Finally, a big thank you to our citizens for being here with us again for our community meeting. We'll do our best to answer the questions you have today. On that note, I'd like to introduce MP Brad Viss to provide an update.
Good evening, everyone. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Perfect. Excellent. It's really good to be joining you. If I'm looking at, it looks like I'm looking in the camera when I look at my notes. Okay, that's perfect. So tonight I'm joining you from my office in Ottawa. We're in the final stretches of the parliamentary session. But I do have a number of updates that are happening in real time. In fact, I just got a call from the Minister of Pacific Economic Development right when we were starting. So I just found out that Community Futures received a grant of $5.5 million to help businesses and communities with wildfire supports. The minister's chief of staff said that the announcement for that is forthcoming, but I'm hoping that some of that will be used for Lytton. And secondly, I had a meeting with Minister Sajan again yesterday on one of the key requests from the Lytton Chamber of Commerce about forgiving some of the COVID-related loans or support programs that businesses engaged in before before the fire. What I will be doing in the next couple of days, as this is happening in real time, is Brittany Lang in my office will be reaching out to the chamber with some of the instructions the minister just provided me today with reaching out and what he's going to be doing on behalf of the residents of Lytton and the businesses that were destroyed, and seeing any way he can support them and get those CEBA loans forgiven completely. That's my objective, and he understands that too. So that's really positive news. Earlier today, I had a one-on-one meeting with Minister Blair, and he stressed with me again the amazing meetings, the heartfelt meeting, I shouldn't say amazing, but the heartfelt meetings he had with a lot of you in town. We both, as you know, come from different political parties, but I will give Minister Blair a lot of credit for pushing the provincial government on disaster financial assistance and making sure that Lytton gets its fair share of money in a timely manner. He told me in our call today, in our one-on-one meeting today in person, that he's also very concerned about BC Hydro and was pushing that with Mike Farnworth as well. He wants to see homes and people returning to the community as quickly as possible. And I feel very confident that he, because of his visit to the to Kamasheen and surrounding areas in Lytton, that he has a good handle, and at the disaster center has a very good handle on what's happening and doing everything in his power to push the provincial government to expedite the process, because the federal money is waiting. Premier Horgan is going to Ottawa for disaster-related issues next week, and the minister outlined very clearly that he will be pushing the premier as well to move as expeditiously as possible. He's really got your back, and I was very pleased with the update he gave me today. I'm going to skip over some of my points about disaster financial assistance. The next big point that I should probably cover, and that is directly my responsibility, is the Canada Post Office. I'm in weekly contact with Canada Post. I'm not pleased with their progress to date. I think the concerns of citizens about receiving basic services are completely correct, and I'm just upset that they have taken so long to give the services that they're required to provide. I was told today as well that the trailer is waiting in Prince George, and that they will be I think that it should be there by the end of June. Unfortunately, this is the second time. They said the end of May, and now we're in June that trailer would be there. So they've delayed it a bit, but they seem to be working on it. But I'm sorry, that's not there already. That's my responsibility, and I'm going to continue pushing until it's there, and it's bad. So that's on me. I'm continuing to engage with the Minister Hussein on housing. I think once the debris removal that the mayor just mentioned is complete, we'll be in a better position for me to work with Michael, the new CAO, on putting forward some applications on rapid housing. I haven't forgotten about that, and I hope we can really find some federal grants to move forward on that within the fiscal year. Finally, on a positive note, I know Fort Barron's Winery out of Lillooet, I just wanted to mention, started a fundraiser. I'm trying to push some of the big corporate partners in the area to help fund a new swimming pool or recreation center in moving forward. TELUS just let me know they're giving $5,000. I thought they could give a little bit more, and I'm still actively pushing CN to give some money to that fundraiser as well. And one final point, I just received word today as well that Kanaka Bar has received a large grant to complete a new community center on reserve. That was just announced today, and with the federal funds, they'll be completing a new facility on reserve just outside of the village as well. And with that, I will open it up to any questions or move on to the next speaker. Thank you. Finally, I should interrupt. I just wanted to say congratulations both to Melissa and Ross. It would be great if I could connect with both of you over a phone call in the coming days. And I'll just let everyone else know that because of the time difference and a very early morning that I have, I won't be on for the whole duration of the call, but Brittany, my staff, will stay on. So thank you for your time tonight.
Thank you so much, MP Biss. As he mentioned, MP Biss has to leave quite soon. So if you do have any questions for him, please raise your hand now or type those in the chat. I'll just hold for maybe about 15 seconds to see if anything comes through. Yeah, Brian.
Brian here with the Ministry of Transportation. MP Biss, you just mentioned a comment about a Canada Post, an office moving or a building or a trailer moving down to Lytton area in June sometime.
That is correct. They are bringing in a much larger expanded trailer that will be at Lytton First Nation, providing full postal services within the month.
Okay, perfect. So part of my update is I've got some scheduled work done at Nickaman River, just north of Lytton. So I just want to make sure we coordinate the work so there'll be a detour in effect. I don't want to cause any disruption to any oversized mood. So if I get some information on how big the trailer is and what kind of configuration, I can make sure schedules don't impact each other.
I'm really glad you raised your hand for that. What I would ask you to do is to private message Brittany Lang, who's in the chat with us this evening, and she will get your email and provide you those specific dates. So there is absolutely not another delay. We need to get this done.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks, Brian. And I'm not seeing any other questions for you, MP Biss. So with that, I just want to thank you for being here. And thank you, Brittany, for staying around, and she'll pass along any other questions that you have for MP Biss.
And I'll still be on for a few minutes, and I look forward to seeing everyone on June 30th in person once again.
Thank you. All right, so on that note, I'd now like to pass it over to Parliamentary Secretary Jennifer Rice and Parliamentary Secretary Rolly Russell for their updates.
Thank you, Jasmine. I will lead off here, and good evening, everybody. I'm Rolly Russell. I'm the Parliamentary Secretary for Rural Development, and I'm joined tonight with Jennifer Rice, Parliamentary Secretary for Emergency Preparedness. Jennifer and I asked with MP Vis, we're in the final week here of our legislative session, and so we're joining you tonight from Victoria, the traditional territory of the Lekwungen, Songhees, and the Esquimalt nations. MP Vis, also maybe we need to have a little follow-up conversation offline so I can get you up to speed on all the resources that BC has been investing into Lytton to help, and all the changes that we've been making to DFA to make things a little easier for both residents as well as small municipalities in the province like Lytton.
Absolutely.
Anyway, I'm very thankful to be here this evening again to join the conversation, and welcome to the two new councillors. Good to have a chance to meet you last week. And on that note, it was certainly good to have a chance to join Minister Farnworth on the ground in Lytton and hear the conversations as well, just kind of how things are moving ahead on the ground. It was good to be back. Certainly there are plenty of challenges ahead, as you all know, but there's also a tremendous opportunity for partnerships and community building. So echoing some of the gratitude that the mayor mentioned earlier as well, around just the thanks to the residents and all the work that is happening, and all the people pulling together to help work through recovery. Had a chance last week as well to meet some of the residents, hear some of their stories, which was a highlight certainly, as well as a chance to catch up with mayor and some of the council members, including the two newly elected, and really, again, gratitude for their commitment to public service in the community. It's for all of you in mayor and council. I know it's a tall order, and I appreciate what you're doing for your community. It's really conversations like those with the council and with residents that motivate me to help continue to do the work that we are trying to do to help the village moving forward and finding solutions and supporting Lytton recovery. So again, thank you. And it was certainly exciting to be there and see the debris removal actively underway, and hearing that it's complete for some of the properties. The sounds of the machines and sights of things getting done is uplifting, no doubt. And I know it's certainly a significant event for a lot of you there. So happy to see things move along. And I just wrap up by saying recovery, as you know, as I know, I think a lot of us are familiar, is always a challenging and long path, and Lytton's path is unique. But I want to just again reiterate and reassure you that the BC government is really here to continue to support and travel that path for recovery right alongside with you. So thank you, everybody, and I will pass it back over to Jennifer Rice.
I meant to unmute and I turned my camera off. Okay, I feel like I sound like a tin can. Does that, can you hear me okay?
It's a little better now. Yeah, you're good.
Okay. Well, thank you. And as Rolly mentioned in the beginning of his comments, I too am joining you from the traditional territory of the Lekwungen peoples and the Songhees and Esquimalt nations. I'm also thankful to be here with you all, and thanks to PS Russell and Minister Farnworth for traveling to Lytton and being able to gather information and report back to government what's really happening on the ground. As you know, thanks in part to funding from the province, the debris removal got going this spring, with Zone 1 now complete and access to Hobble Hollow ensured. It continues to gain momentum in the rest of the village. Thanks to the leadership of the village and the approach they are taking with the different zones, I am confident that this is a well-coordinated effort. I'm pleased to hear that, that realistic targets and expectations for completion of all properties have been set. I'm also pleased to know that safety continues to be a priority, and the significant concentrations of hazardous contaminants will be properly disposed of. The village and the province are currently working with the insurance sector with the objective to complete the cleanup on the insured properties on the same timeline as the uninsured. So our government has committed to covering the archaeology costs for the insured properties, as well as any shortfalls in the insurance policies as they relate to the overall debris removal and site cleanup. In collaboration, the village, province, and insurance sector are working together to clearly identify the level of coverage from the existing policies and to design a process for the provincial funds to meet any gaps in the funds available from those policies. Good conversations are ongoing with all the partners, and we'll be looking to get the approval of those property owners to proceed with debris removal. This is not simple or easy work, and I appreciate everyone that comes to the table to help find solutions for every person impacted by this tragedy. So I'll leave my remarks at that. Congratulations to the new councillors. I look forward to meeting you, and thank you for your time. And thanks for having Rolly and I.
Thank you both so much for being here with us, as always. Are you both able to stay till the end of the meeting? Yes, okay, great, perfect. So if you do have any questions for the parliamentary secretaries, please put those in the chat or raise your hand and we'll get to them at the end of the meeting here.
Sorry to interrupt, I have to leave just
No problem at all. So if you have any questions for Parliamentary Secretary Rice, maybe please put those in the chat now then, that would be great. Maybe just wait about 10-15 seconds to make sure nothing's coming through, and then we'll get started on the updates. All right, okay, I'm not seeing any hands. I'm not seeing any questions come in for Parliamentary Secretary Rice. So I'll keep my eyes open though, and if we do get any, I'll make sure to pass those along to you. Thank you both so much. All right, on that note, we'll get started with our updates. If we haven't already met, my name is Jasmine Patrick, and I'll be helping moderate the community meeting again today. So maybe before we get started, we'll share our presentation really quickly. And we'll go through just a few quick rules here. So the purpose of today's session is to provide an opportunity for residents to ask questions and give feedback, and to provide you with the latest updates on the short-term recovery plan as well. So before we get started here, I'm going to give you a quick glance at the agenda just so you know what kind of updates you're going to be receiving. So in a really quick second, I'll go through some Zoom housekeeping items and tools. Then we'll have a number of updates on those recovery and rebuild initiatives, as you can see in the list here. After the updates, we'll open up the session to all of your questions. So you can type those in the chat or you can ask them out loud by raising your hand. And then finally, we'll just close off with some final remarks and the date of the next community meeting. There are a couple rules for participation today. So number one is that we ask you to please be respectful in your tone and with the use of the chat box, and also of the time by keeping your questions direct and to the point and allowing others to speak. Please use appropriate language. So refrain from using profanities or abusive language. Negative comments toward any individuals will not be tolerated today. So anyone using abusive language will be removed from the session. If there are any media here today, you are very welcome to be here. Thank you for being here, actually. However, the primary purpose of this meeting is to answer resident questions specifically. So we respectfully ask that you hold any questions and email them to communication@lytton.ca, and we'll respond to those after the meeting. And then finally, as always, please speak up. We're here today to hear your thoughts and questions and all of your feedback to help us make better decisions. So please share all of your ideas and questions. All right, so I'll just take a a couple seconds to run through some Zoom tools. So first at the bottom of the screen, you're going to see a chat button. If you click that chat button, a box is going to appear on the right-hand side of your screen, and you can use that chat function to send us questions today. At the end of the meeting, like I mentioned, there's also going to be an opportunity for you to ask your questions out loud. So to do that, please use the raise hand function on Zoom, and you can find that by clicking on reactions at the bottom of your screen and then clicking raise hand. I do see that there are a couple people that have called in today. So if you've called in using a phone, you can still participate. So *6 will allow you to mute and unmute, and then *9 will allow you to raise your hand. And then finally, at the end of the session, if you run into any technical issues and need help, please email communication@lytton.ca, and we'll do our best in the background to help you get reconnected. Okay.
Questions in the chat, and we will be able to then we'll be able to answer the questions at the end of the session as well. So I think with that, at this point, if you do run into any technical issues and you need help, please email communications@lytton.ca. I will put that email in the chat, and you are able to kind of send that email in there, and we'll be able to assist you if you do experience any challenges. So I think moving forward, we're now going to move into the update section of the meeting. We have a lot of updates to get through, so I'll ask that all of our speakers keep their updates short if possible. So first on the list we have is for safe return. So we'll start with the safe return category, and we are going to look at essential services. We will start with the Resilience Center update from Ron Matuzzi.
Okay, thank you. I think one of the important things that we'll be dealing with in the next 24 hours is the team that's going to be looking at unmet needs, community needs, and all those types of things. We'll be meeting to look at the next phase. Resiliency is dealing with the emergency. Now we're really looking at rebuilding the community. And so Jack Keogh, who's our lead, he says housing, but Jack's really looking at after all the people side of this equation. And we'll be meeting with EMBC staff to look at how we're going to be coordinating the various NGOs and the various services they provide in the next phase. One of the problems that we do have as well is that at the end of the school year, we are losing both the school and the volunteers. I think the school itself may not be as big an issue, but it's very difficult to actually have the Resilience Center running without volunteers in the community. We sincerely appreciate the work that the volunteers have done, being there and being able to support those functions. But we'll have to look at some other alternatives. And I'd also like to just spend a second here and thank Teresa Downs. One of the very first person that we met when this all started was Teresa. And she was just so supportive of helping us in any way. I think that the Resiliency Center has been very helpful to the community as a meeting place, and I certainly want to thank Teresa for her support. I'm not sure we've always been great tenants. I think sometimes we've given her a few headaches, but we do appreciate the fact that she opened up the school and has been so cooperative with us. So that's my report. As I said, what we're going to be doing now is looking at alternative ways of dealing with the delivery of the people's side of the services through the various NGOs. And like I said, the meeting takes place tomorrow. Thanks.
Thanks, Ron. And sorry, everybody. Hopefully that's the last of my technical difficulties today. So next on the list, we have Daphne Nelson from Community Futures. I know, Daphne, you have to run really quickly. So if you're still here, I'll pass it over to you.
Yes, I am here. It's all good. Oops. Am I sounding strange as well, or are we good?
I can hear you.
Okay, great. Good evening, everyone. And White will write up Daphne Nelson and Squext to Kamloops and Saskatchewan. That means hi everyone, I'm Daphne and I'm in Kamloops. And so Community Futures recognizes that we provide services within the ancestral, traditional, and unceded territories of the Nicoquitma, Secwepemc, Statliam, and Solo nations. And I don't have a ton of update, but I am very, very excited about MP Vis's announcement, and looking forward to learning more about how that will be undertaken. So there will be, I'm assuming, some communications there, and I'm really hoping to have more updates next time. But I guess in terms of what we've been up to, I've been to the Resiliency Center, did have a few more folks through the doors last time. I guess my last visit there will be this upcoming Wednesday. So was able to help a few people with their Facebook pages and things like that. That was really great. We are having continued contact with folks via email updates, but another survey interview has commenced, and we're going to be finishing that up, I guess, probably by the end of next week. But in terms of that, I guess one of the things, and maybe I'll bring this up more at an interagency meeting coming up, but there were some effects of the atmospheric river that are being felt this spring by folks. And I would really just encourage everyone who has been affected by that, particularly the agricultural producers with their irrigation intakes, back road washouts, things like that. Everybody is feeling a lot of soil erosion, then there's worry about more damage. So really important for everyone to know more about what's going on there. So keep that information flowing to us. And I guess finally, I'm just going to put my information in the chat and encourage people, give me a couple days to sort out this announcement that our MP Vis has provided today. I just heard about it, so we're going to have to figure out how all this is going to work, and looking forward to being able to bring that to folks. So if there's any questions, I can stay on for a few more minutes, but otherwise my information's there, and please feel free to reach out.
Thanks so much, Daphne. That's awesome news. So if you do have any questions for Daphne, please put those in the chat. But at this point in time, I'll turn it over to the Canadian Red Cross. I believe we have Tammy and Raj here with us today.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. This is Zoom technical difficulty night, I'm thinking. So my name is Tammy. Thank you for having me here, and thank you for all of the wonderful updates. I am joining you today from the traditional and ancestral lands of the Stolo peoples, Katzie First Nation. I am located myself in Langley. So I know it's a slide, but I just wanted to bring this up for you. So just for the Red Cross updates, we will be in the Lytton Resilience Center June 13th to the 17th. And additionally, in the other locations that you're seeing here on the screen. So Kamloops, Ashcroft, Monty Lake, Vernon, and West Side Road. And that's just to make sure that we can provide those in-person supports for everybody from the village of Lytton and surrounding area. So if you know of anybody that has not yet spoken with a case manager or connected with a case manager, please ask them to reach out. With the Resiliency Center closing at the end of the month, just want to make sure that we're still available. We will still be there for maybe not the in-person supports, but we are there, and it's the same case manager that you're going to be working with. And that's how you connect with them. So 1-800-863-6582, which I'm sure that if you have a case manager, you're very familiar with that number, or you can email at bcyrecoverysupports@redcross.ca. I just wanted to take a minute to talk about the wildfire recovery line. For those of you who have called it, you're familiar with it now. When you do call the number, you are actually connecting first with a booking agent. So the person you're connecting with, they're responsible to answer calls for disasters across Canada. So they will direct you to your case manager. They will book an appointment with your specific case manager. So you will be speaking to the same person all the time. You may get a different person when you call the 1-800 number, but when you're connected, it will be your case manager that is calling you back. So we're working with our partners still behind the scenes, seeing how we can support recovery in any way that we can. And we're here for the psychosocial support as well. So we have our mental health and psychosocial team. There's two psychosocial officers, as well as some managers. And like it's been a long road. It's been a long road to recovery. And it's just, I'm hopeful with the announcements from tonight, and just, if you need to reach out and talk to somebody and that's all you want to do is talk, call us. We are available, and that's what we're here for. And that's all I have.
Thanks, Tammy. That's great. Okay, so on that note, I'm going to turn it over to the United Way if Ryan is here. Ryan, if you are here, please raise your hand. We'll turn it over to you.
Ryan might be away tonight. I think he had something come up.
Okay, no worries. Thanks, Tammy. On that note, then we will move on to Sergeant Scott Clay.
Hi, Jasmine. Hi, everybody. Just very brief stuff today here. So I'd hope to have good news that we were in the final leg of being able to get our temporary detachment up and running, but I found out late this afternoon that that project's been pushed back now due to availability to likely November. We are working with Fort Modular, who's doing a lot of the temporary housing on LFN, and they'll be delivering us a fully functioning community office here in the fall. Staffing levels remain balanced with the 4 members living and working in the area. We are going to undergo a bit of a schedule change here in the next month or so, I think. Just going to try to adjust our target hours in anticipation of the uptick of summer travel. We're already seeing a lot of RV and motorcycle and exotic car travel in and around the entire detachment area. So we just want to tweak our levels there to make sure that we're on the highways and we're addressing problems before they become big problems and cause to shutdowns. We still have the 1 vacant position. We are negotiating with a property manager right now for another staff house. And I do have some interest from experienced members looking to transfer into the area. So I'm hoping by our next community update, we'll have good news that we'll have a house secured and another member on our way to bring our staffing levels back to full for the Lytton area. And that's my update.
Great, thanks so much, Sergeant Clay. So we are lucky enough to have Megan and Sherry here from Samaritan's Purse, and they are hoping to provide us with an update on the work that they're doing. So I'll turn it over to Megan and Sherry.
Perfect. So thank you so much to Jasmine for allowing us to kind of slip in so quickly, because it was a pretty last minute thing that Sherry and I emailed and asked if we could talk and kind of give an update. So Sherry and I have just recently hit the ground in the city of Lytton. We were able to visit the Resiliency Center at the end of April, and it was a great visit. It was fantastic to go. We got to see one of the workshops that was happening there. So it was great. Everybody there was incredibly friendly and welcomed us with open arms. So just to kind of give a quick summary as to what our role here in Lytton is that we are here for the next 2 to 3 years, acting as recovery specialists. It's essentially a fancy way of saying a case manager. We offer wraparound support to fire affected residents by offering a listening ear, helping people navigate the long, complex journey of recovery. So is there anything that you think I missed, Sherry?
No, I think you're nailing this well. I know that as well. We have been in Lytton just for that quick visit, and it was both humbling to see the school operating as it was in a resiliency center, and to see people finding their support there and connecting. It was encouraging to see that. I will also make mention of the fact that for the Red Cross team, we have also been liaising with the Red Cross team at times to help reach the number of people needing a little extra support. So that's maybe something to bear in mind as well. We will do what we can to support that as well for extra case management and support for residents. We are just excited to be able to be a part of the resource in helping to rebuild and to encourage the redevelopment of the beautiful, beautiful community of Lytton. And we believe that it will flourish again. So yeah, we're happy to be on board.
Yeah, well, I'll link our emails and our phone numbers into the chat as well, just in case anybody would like to get in contact with us. So thank you again for giving us this time. We appreciate it.
Awesome. Thank you both so much for being here and for providing that update. That's great. Okay, so before we move on to the next section, I did get an update from Canada Post that they were hoping that I could just read out for them. So it is, work is underway preparing the ground at the location of the large trailer, but our facilities team is still waiting for the green light to be able to bring the trailer down from Prince George, which is what MP Biss said. This week is still possible, but regrettably there might be a delay until next week. However, the goal we are working toward is to have the larger trailer fully operational to serve the community by the last week of June. So that's the update that I have from Canada Post. If you do have any questions for Canada Post, though, please type those in the chat and I'll make sure that I email those over to Ben and he'll get back to you directly. Okay, so we'll move on now to Safe Return. And our first speaker is going to be Brian Taylor from the Ministry of Transportation and Infrastructure. Brian?
Good evening. Thank you very much for the invite. To get further to that move, activities on the highway coming up are, sorry, am I sounding okay? I sound scratchy on this end.
We can hear you. It's a little scratchy, but it's getting better.
So we have some work on the Nikomin River Bridge that we did a couple of weeks ago. We have to go back in and finish repairs, which we were aiming to do June 10th. Through the 17th, so we'll be back on the detour. That's why I brought up about the trailer move to Canada Post. So I'll have to get Ben to email me the configuration to see if there will be any issues, because the detour is restricted for size. So it'll be important to get that done. So that's hoping, say, from June 10th through the 17th. To fix the bearings on the bridge where it was damaged during the flood. As well, we have some work going on intermittently throughout the various sites. Again, doing the winter construction, we wouldn't have time to hydro seed and get some erosion control in place. We're doing that over starting June 8th through the 15th or so at various spots. So Nikomin, Tank Hill, Gladwin, through down to Jackass, the Falls Creek area. So those will be small intermittent single lane sections, if you will, as the hydro seeding company moves along. And also we're working on long-term repairs. The ministry is still working hard with to come up with the recovery of these sites for long-term. So that's ongoing with some updates coming out in the next month. Highway 12, I know the 12-mile slide, Brad Bushel from the district gave me an update that he's still waiting to hear back on engineering design, and so that one's still a restricted site. I believe it's 14,000 kilograms through there for loads, and there's width restricted. So more to come on the design and repair schedule for the slide on Highway 12 for that access. Well, with that, that's about it for the highway on my end.
Great. Thanks so much, Brian. Okay, next we have a bit of an update from Ron Dickinson on the building bylaws.
Thanks, Jasmine. Yeah, it is a bit of an update. Bylaw, there's two really. Bylaw
7:10, and it is going to be on the agenda for the June 8th council meeting, where council will give consideration of whether they want to give it third reading, which is the last step before adoption, which should be probably 2 weeks after that. So that bylaw is pretty much ready to go, I think, for at least to get it in front of council for their impression of it. We've added the fees and charges to it. That's a significant change to what we saw at first and second reading. So that's going ahead. Bylaw 711 had first reading at the last meeting, and we're working towards getting moving it along now too. So that's the scope of the update. Thanks, Jasmine. If there's any questions, I'll be around to answer them.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Ron. So we're going to talk about debris removal next. We've got an update from the village and an update from the TNRD. So I'm first going to turn it over to Matt Lane to talk about the village debris removal.
Thanks, Jasmine. Matt Lane, project manager for the debris removal and recovery. So to get started, we do have almost all of the surface remediation completed in all of the zones, working through MatCon. They are currently working through foundation and concrete removal as well on all of the zones. We are waiting on some soils reports to do soil removal on several of the zones. However, we're looking at zone 1 for soils next week, as long as some of the permits come in. We do have all of our heritage approvals in place, with the exception of anything in and around the archaeological significant areas. And I would like to, I've been asked to point out that we are still waiting on some of the right of entry permits needed to complete some of the properties.
Great, thanks so much, Matt. All right, I'm going to turn it over to Jamie from the TNRD.
Hello, good evening, everyone. So update from my perspective, TNRD perspective, similar to the update I gave last month, we're working one-on-one with property owners who need assistance with cleanup. So this is partially just a plug to remind everyone, if you need assistance with cleanup of the rural properties, please contact us directly. We have a page on the website devoted to the wildfire debris removal. So we have a few property owners we're working with and going through the heritage process, permitted process for those, and have an actual tender that's closing to select a contractor to do that cleanup work. It's closing this week. So we want to get rolling on that fairly soon. Yeah, and I guess just another plug around debris removal, just a reminder that our transfer station on Highway 12 is open regular hours, Wednesday to Sunday, for standard kind of household garbage and recycling, Wednesday to Sunday, 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. And I will stick around for this whole call, so we'll be happy to answer questions about debris removal from the TNRD perspective, or anything else as representing the TNRD here tonight.
Great, thanks, Jamie. Next, I'm going to turn it over to CAO Grew to talk about resident insurers and the MOU with the village.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you for being here tonight. I'd like to recognize that I'm calling in from the unceded territory of the Tecumseh So last night at the council meeting, already the parliamentary secretaries have mentioned the fact that we're working on them providing funding for the uninsured or underinsured, sorry. So last night, a recommendation went to council and they approved it. A memorandum of understanding regarding the process for the village and provincial government to support property owners that have a shortfall or are underinsured for the debris removal and remediation of private properties in the village of Lytton. Authorization for the recovery project manager was provided to share the MOU with the property owners, their insurers in the province of BC. And council also approved the establishment of a trust for recovery purposes, for monies to be deposited into the trust on behalf of the property owners by their insurers, which will represent the maximum financial liability for the insurers and the policyholders. Therefore, the village recovery team is authorized to use the monies in trust for the recovery purposes with due care and attention while abiding by all authorities having jurisdiction, provincial legislation and regulations. So in other words, we'll be moving forward with all zones and all properties once the MOU has been executed.
Great, thanks, Leslie. So next I'm going to turn it over to Owen Collings, and he's going to talk about access to the CN Rail Bridge as well as access to the village on Saturdays.
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me all right? Oh, very scratchy.
Yeah, you're a little bit scratchy.
Okay, I'll continue on though. In anticipation of the suspension of the service of the ferry, which is imminent any day now, the water is pretty high. We have already opened up the corridor down to Hobo Hollow for access. We opened it up on Monday, so it's already been actively used. In fact, this morning there were probably about 20 cars on each side of the bridge, so we're already using it. The access is through First Street from Main or Highway 12 and then River Road, the usual way that we always go. There's fences on both sides. Some people got a little distracted by the fences, but be aware that it is open. There are some warning signs along the fences, you know, to not dawdle along the way, not stop. It's sort of like the same as going down Main Street or Highway 12. When you're driving through Lytton, just roll up your windows. I mean, there is very little risk of any debris in Hobo Hollow and Zone 1 when you pass through because it's already been cleaned up to a great extent. So not to worry. A couple of areas that were maybe at risk or there was some debris left, we have fenced them off so that residents won't access those areas. Anyway, it's open and free for people to use. And it'll continue to be open as long as necessary when the river's flooded and the ferry service is suspended. It could be just a couple of weeks, or as some of us know, it could be as up to 2.5 to 3 months. Just depends on the flood. As far as access to the site for residents on weekends, Matt Kahn, Health and Safety representative, and myself are offering to the residents of Lytton to come on Saturday, June 11th, or Saturday, July 9th, Saturday, August 13th, and Saturday, September the 10th. So basically the second Saturday of every month. And we'll be available from 8 o'clock in the morning until 2 in the afternoon. And there'll still be orientations at 8 o'clock in the morning and 11 a.m. We only have about 10 sets of PPE, personal protective equipment. And of course, you know, people's boot sizes are quite a range. And so if you have your own safety footwear, that'd be a good idea. Anyway, contact myself. My telephone's number's out there, also my email address. And Mark Silverman also, who is the health and safety representative for Matt Kahn, he'll take calls and we would prefer that people let us know ahead of time so that we can plan the day. It would also be a good idea if we knew what their activity they had anticipated, so we could easily accommodate them. I think that's it. If I have any questions, let me know.
That's great. Thank you so much, Owen. So on that note, I'm going to turn it over to Jack, and he's going to talk about housing and the survey update, I think.
Thank you, Jasmine. I thought I'd start with just a bit of a preamble. There was a survey that was completed. Well, I guess it was initiated last August. I think looked like it was penned around September of last year, which was a fairly broad survey. But when I looked at the survey, it didn't seem to give us the information that we thought we needed for two purposes in particular. One is to determine whether or not folks were in need of some interim housing in the community, or I'll speak to the location later on. And secondly, what was going to be the need for some type of affordable housing option that would be more long-term. So that was kind of what was in our minds as we sort of crafted the survey. There were quite a few more questions, and some of you, I'm sure, are on this call that have spoken to some of the surveyors. There's a team of 3 that were working with me. The methodology that we used was we separated the property owners and the renters. So we wanted to get a sense of the property owners. One, again, was there a need for interim housing? Secondly, was it their intention to come back and rebuild? And questions around, their insurance thresholds. And the other piece of information we were wanting to find out, and again, this ties to the affordable housing option, is that if there are residents whose properties were destroyed and they weren't coming back, would they be, do they have any thoughts around how they're going to dispose of their property? So those were some of the questions we were asking. So the purpose of the survey was we needed to inform these next 2 steps, particularly the interim housing. I don't want to do a data dump with people, but roughly we spoke to, or we have a list of 120 property owners, as well as 65 renters that were distinct from the property owners. We've spoken to probably 75 to 80% of those, hoping to have this finished by either the end of the weekend or early next week, and then start looking at the numbers that we're getting. I will say that there is still, even from the survey that was done in last fall, there is still some ambiguity. There's still some uncertainty that residents are telling us around whether or not they're going to rebuild. And it's that, this is a bit of a chicken and egg thing, wanting to see what's going to be in the community and whether till they make that final decision. Of course, we're informing them of what essential services there are now and what services they can likely access either in Ashcroft or Lillooet. So we're trying to share that with them. Just as I guess maybe a side point, but so I was meeting today with the representatives from Aspen Planers, and some of you may know this from the phone calls, that that's the site that is being considered for interim housing, and we are hoping to meet with the mayor and some other key individuals next week to try and finish off a lease arrangement, which I think has been in the works, I think, for almost a year now. So that's the hope, at least anyway, and had a sense of optimism today from the meeting that this is going to be our best opportunity. I don't know if there's anything else, or if anybody has any questions regarding the survey and the information. It's not completed yet, but I could probably answer some questions if people have them.
Great, thanks, Jack. So if you do have any questions about the survey, please put those in the chat and I'll make sure to relay those over to Jack at the end of the meeting.
If I could also thank people for participating, that's been very, very helpful, and it's really helping to inform these next steps. When I said we've made contact with a significant percentage, there are a number of individuals, renters primarily, that we have no phone numbers, no emails. So we've tried various means of trying to track them down, but we're not going to let that stop us from completing the survey and come up with our analysis. But we are, we're trying to contact everybody, property owners or renters. That's our objective.
Perfect, thank you. All right, next on the list, I'm actually going to turn it back over to Matt to talk about critical infrastructure and water.
Thank you. So for the infrastructure and water side, once we do have services capped off as we move through the debris removal on all of the sites through the fire affected areas, we'll be able to conduct additional assessments and leak detections on the water system throughout the village. From there, we'll be moving into the actual repairs of the system. Plan for that would be towards end of summer, leading into work into year's end. We are seeing a large amount of delays with materials from overseas for valves and pipes. So it is a risk that we are monitoring at the moment and trying to move ahead of things and accelerate any of our schedules. We are also still pursuing additional funding and grant options in order to increase the resiliency of the water treatment and wastewater treatment systems for the entirety of the village. That's
Great.
what I have.
Perfect. Thanks, Matt. All right. Next, we have Marianne and Derek here with us from BC Hydro.
Hi, everybody. Thanks again for having us here tonight. My name is Marianne Coles, and I'm part of BC Hydro's community relations team in the Southern Interior. And I have with me tonight my coworker, Derek Curl. Derek is part of our interconnections group and is leading the rebuilding of our system in Lytton. So I'm joining you here tonight from Castlegar, and I'd like to acknowledge that I'm calling in from the traditional territory of the Shakwepa, Ktunaxa, Okanagan, and Sinixt nations. This evening, I'd like to start by providing you with an update as to our progress with debris removal, as well as the rebuilding of our infrastructure. So our debris removal work is almost complete, and we are moving ahead with the rebuilding of our infrastructure at this time. The design work to rebuild the main overhead line through Lytton is also now complete. And the construction of the main circuit is going to take place in several phases. So during the first phase of construction, we are going to rebuild the main pole line along Main Street, in addition to an extension from Main Street to Fraser Street along First Street. And this work is targeted for completion in September of this year. For the second phase, we're going to rebuild the pole line along Fraser Street and 7th Street, and will also extend along Station Street. So this work is targeted for completion in December of this year. Obviously, the timing for the different phases are subject to many factors that are outside of our control, and that's including getting access to the site, as well as heritage requirements. So after the overhead lines are rebuilt, we want you to be aware that electrical safety clearances and limits of approach will have to be observed to ensure safe working conditions during future building construction. Also, once the main lines have been rebuilt, customers can begin the process to reconnect by hiring a certified contractor and seeking appropriate approvals from the Village of Lytton and Technical Safety BC. To request a reconnection from us, you can visit us online at www.bchydro.com/getconnected or call us directly at 1-877-520-1355. Thanks again for having us here tonight, and we're happy to take any questions.
Great. Thanks, Marianne.
Thank you.
All right. We will now move on to the local government section. So first on the list, we have Kevin from the TNRD, and he's going to give us an update on emergency management.
Yeah, good evening, everybody. Kevin Strepnick here from the TNRD emergency program, speaking to you tonight from the very much unceded territory of the Tecumseh Secwepemc people. So a few quick updates. There was a really great event put on last night that I pleasure of attending out at the Stein Valley Intercottler School, and that was put on by the Tecumseh Fire Smart Committee. We had a good turnout of people, and it was great to see a lot of faces in person that we had been seeing on screens for the last few years. So there was a number of agencies there, including BC Wildfire, LFN, and just a really good turnout, and good to talk about wildfire preparedness as we kind of go into the summer. So with that in mind, probably not a surprise to anyone given the weather we've been having, but you know, we don't have any immediate concerns, certainly in the next few weeks, about major fire activity. Obviously fairly cool, fairly wet for most of the areas. A lot of the big indices that we look at in terms of fire season starting to get going are certainly behind where they would have been last year. So that's good news for the next little while. But you know, as we all know, that can change pretty quickly. once the weather starts to click, and if we have any sort of a heat event, and obviously given the wind in the Fraser Canyon, it doesn't take long for that to dry out. So certainly flooding right now is more so our concern, both in the Lytton region and across the TNRD. And as it was mentioned earlier, really happy to see the access through to Hobo Hollow restored, given the fact that the Lytton ferry is probably going to be out of commission pretty quick here, given how high the water is in the river. So beyond that, as MOTI had mentioned earlier, there is still that slide on Highway 12. So we have been doing some work both with the province and LFN as well, in terms of just confirming that the Lalawissing Creek FSR can be maintained and utilized as a backup emergency route if Highway 12 is compromised. But it's my understanding that the slide is starting to move a little bit more slowly than it was before. So that's certainly good news in the short term. And I think the only other update from TNRD, just in the emergency management space, and it's good news. Our board did approve a new position that we're in the process of hiring right now. The person's going to primarily be handling fire department training for the 8 fire departments that we manage at the regional district. But part of that portfolio is also going to be around FireSmart. And we haven't had a staff position that's been largely dedicated to FireSmart here. So I think that's good news. It's going to be part of their role. They're largely going to be supporting the fire departments, but the intention is that they can kind of start getting a FireSmart program for the region up and running here. The hope being that by next summer, we'll have seasonal staff in place as well, and we can start to be rolling out more programming assessments, things like that. So it'll take a little while for that to come together, but definitely good news, and credit to our board for putting the support behind. And that's all from TNRD. Again, thank you for having me.
Thank you so much, Kevin. So I'm now going to turn it over to acting CAO Gru and our new CAO, Mike Baker. So maybe over to you first, CAO Gru.
Thank you, Jasmine. So it's my pleasure, and I'm sure everyone else's, to be announcing that we now have a permanent CAO that'll be starting at the end of June for the Village of Lytton. I'll quickly read your bio and then have Michael say a couple of words. So Michael Baker joined the Regional District of Kitimat-Stikine in 2021 in the capacity of Director of Works and Services. Michael has worked extensively for the local governments over the past 17 years. He began his career working as an engineering consultant with Omega Engineering in Salmon Arm and an engineering consultant with McElhaney Consulting in Nanaimo. Michael then moved to become the Manager of Engineering Design for the City of Nanaimo, an engineering technologist for the City of Salmon Arm, and as Director of Infrastructure Services with the District of Coldstream. Michael is an applied science technologist and holds a diploma in technology from Cambrian College and a diploma in local government management from the University of Victoria. Michael has been an active participant and volunteer in several community and professional organizations. Some of these organizations include Heart and Stroke Foundation, the Family Resource Center, and Minor Hockey. Welcome, Michael. Turn it over to you.
Thank you very much, Leslie. Good evening, everyone. I'd like to acknowledge that I'm coming to you today from the traditional unceded homelands and territory of the Tsimshian First Nation. I would also like to congratulate our 2 new councillors on their recent election. Congratulations, councillors Michelle and Urquhart. Or Mitchell and Urquhart, my apologies. My name is Michael Baker, and I'm humbled and excited to be meeting you as Lytton's new CAO. I've been involved in local government for the past approximately 20 years, and I'm excited about the challenges that the community is currently facing. I'm looking forward to getting up to speed with the amazing team that we've already got in place and to help council achieve their vision for the rebuilding of Lytton. As Mayor Polderman had mentioned earlier, one of the exciting initiatives that we're embarking on is a new official community plan. Through our public consultation process, you, the residents, will have an opportunity to shape the future of Lytton. I look forward to working with you through this exciting opportunity as I get to better understand all of the challenges and the opportunities that are facing our community. Thank you very much.
Great. Thanks, Mike, and welcome. We're very happy to have you on the team.
Thank you.
All right, so I'm actually going to pass it back over to CAO Crew, and I believe you have a number of updates. I think you're going to speak to the official community plan, maybe an update on the establishment of a municipal hall and available positions.
Yes, thank you, Jasmine. So the official community plan has been drafted. Request for proposal will be posted, I believe, around June 15th with the closing date of July 13th. Then it'll get underway. There will be lots of opportunity for public consultation and so forth. The next item is the establishment of municipal hall. So there is a report that has been done on a temporary office site by James High's team. And there are 3 sites that have been considered. And the report will go to council on June the 8th. To provide direction back to staff on which site that they would prefer out of the report. And then staff will work with the NBC and others on establishing funding in order to build the project. Next one is an update on available positions. We currently have a posting for a chief financial officer. We also have a posting for a deputy corporate officer. And we had a posting for a senior accounting clerk, which is a union position. That closed last Friday. We did not get any responses. So we will repost it and maybe put it some other spots that make it more obvious. And that's it for me. Thank you very much.
Awesome. Thanks, Leslie. Okay, I'm now going to turn it over to our CFO, Terry, and I believe he has a number of updates as well on utility invoices, the tax rate bylaw and property tax notices, and also the hashtag Lytton Strong fundraiser.
Perfect. Thank you, Jasmine. I know I'm the scratchy one, so apologize for that. Thank you for having me, everyone. So the first item on the topics I'm addressing tonight are the utility invoices for the first quarter of 2022. And the property owners, I'm sure, would have received those notices by now. And those notices, as a reminder, are in accordance with the previous council resolution relative primarily to the Ponderosa and Warren subdivisions and the any property owner in the downtown core that their property was lost in the fire will not be receiving a utility invoice at this time. The second item is the 2022 tax rate bylaw was passed May 11th council meeting, and the property tax notices were to be mailed today, actually. So you will be receiving the notices in short order. And the one thing to notice that's different from specifically last year, and I'm not sure how many years, but we also are in the process of repealing the alternative tax collection scheme bylaw, which means that the village of Lytton is reverting back to the legislated due date for property taxes for all classes of properties. Previously, the way I would describe it is the residential properties were due July 31st and the commercial properties were due in September. So now all property taxes for 2022 going forward will be due on the legislated due date of July 2nd. This year, July 2nd is on a weekend, so the due date is July 4th. And of course, if there's any questions about the tax notices or utility invoices, please feel free to reach out to staff or myself. Very happy to help and answer questions and get resolutions. The third piece on my update is to do with the Ford Parents fundraisers. And I think MP Brad Viss mentioned it earlier in the presentation this evening. So about 10 days ago, approximately the forbearance folks are in the village and filming and doing some interviews, and they've completed their production, and those productions are going live tomorrow. And Jasmine, if I can ask you to put into the chat the URL for the website for this fundraiser. I'm not sure if everybody's aware, but this fundraiser has a purpose of raising money for the rebuilding of the pool or recreational center in Lytton. The goal of this fundraiser is to raise $125,000, not just from forbearance, but also other corporate sponsors. And I know that there's been some updates with that. For example, I've been informed that TELUS has provided $5,000 towards this. On the website, you can see silent auction and gift card packages and different ways that people can participate. So please feel free to pass out this information. And there's also a live silent auction on there as well. So and I was just told today that tomorrow morning, Noni and Rolf from Forbearance are going to be featured on Global News tomorrow morning. I think it's at 8:15. Noni, if you're in the chat there, if you can correct me if I'm wrong in the time, but that's what I was informed of today. So the village has had a preview of the videos and presentation, and I think that you'll find that they're first class, professional, and something to be very proud of. So those are my comments as to the financial and then other updates for the village.
That's great. Thanks, Terry. Okay, so I know that was a lot of updates. That is the end of them all. So we are going to now open it up to all of your questions or your feedback if you just have a comment. So if you do have a question, please use the chat box and we'll go through them all until we run out of time. You can also raise your hand. So just as a reminder, you just click reactions at the bottom of your screen and then raise hand. And I'll sort of call your name and ask you to unmute. So please feel free to get started with those questions. I did get a couple in advance and we have a few that came through the chat. So maybe I'll start with those. So the first one is about archaeological monitoring. And so I think this would normally be James, but maybe Matt, if you happen to know the answer in his absence, that would be great. The question is, have there been any significant archaeological finds made in the village, and how is that information being shared, if so?
So I can say that there are a few areas of known significance. To that extent, I don't know the actual specific details. We would need to get an update from Cumsheen Heritage and find out what we are allowed to release. There are some rules around what can and cannot be said, but again, I'm not aware of it at this moment.
No problem. Thanks, Matt. So maybe we'll take that one back with us and see if we can get a few more details, and we'll put those in a bit of a Q&A on the website. So the next one is regarding the state of local emergency. So this one might be for CEO Brew, I think. So the first question is, will the village be asking for an extension of the current state of local emergency? And if so, why? And the follow-up is, what powers does the village need that require a local state of emergency to be in place? And how have they used those powers to date?
So the state of local emergency has been resubmitted every Friday based on the fact that we're still under hazardous materials on site. And I didn't catch the last question, sorry.
No problem. Hold on one second. What powers does the village need that require a state of local emergency to be in place, and how have those powers been used to date?
Under the Emergency Program Act, we have the powers to do that, and the mayor is the one that signs the state of local emergency. And I would get back to whoever the person is asking on how they've been used to date, but essentially just to carry on the fact that we've got the hazardous materials and the debris cleanup has to be done.
Awesome. Thanks, Leslie. Okay, the next question here. There's just a follow-up here that says, wasn't it for a pool fund? So I believe that was in reference to your comments, Terry. I don't know if you can expand a little bit.
Yeah, I think I thought I mentioned it, but yes, that's entirely correct. That fundraiser is in support of reestablishing the pool slash recreation center for the village.
Jasmine, I do have a follow-up to the question that was asked. So just recently, the state of local emergency was used to ensure that the properties, there was a couple properties that still needed to be provided a right of entry in order for us to clean them up so that we could get access to Hobo Hollow. So council did pass a resolution to use that state of local emergency for that purpose. However, the property owners were able to provide us right of entry permit prior to us having to actually go in and use that authority.
Great, thank you. So I do see a comment and a question from Trisha. So that just speaks to the lack of essential health services in the last meeting. And when there's going to be updates. So I believe any updates that we've received from health services have gone out in the newsletter. But that said, I don't see anybody from any of the health services team on the call. So Trisha, I will email them right after this meeting. I'll email all 4 of them to see if they have any updates we can provide. And I'll also pass that over to the village communication staff and we can get that posted in the next newsletter. Really sorry about that delay. The next question that I see that's come in is regarding the ATCO trailer commercial. Not sure who can specifically speak to that, maybe CAO. The first question is, what exactly did ATCO give the village in terms of money, goods, or services for the right to film in Lytton? And then what is the follow-up to that is, how is that money going to be used?
So the initial money provided was 50,000, but I believe they added an additional 50. Is that correct?
That's right. And they've also provided a small office and cooling center to the village.
Okay.
Great, thank you. There are a couple more follow-ups to that topic. So the first, and I don't know if we have these details, so maybe we can take them back, but why did some people in the village also receive money from ATCO for the filming? How was it determined who would be paid and how much? And why were the businesses whose burned out buildings were shown in the ad not asked for their permission? I'm not sure if we have these answers offhand, but can take them back if we don't.
If we could have those, we would take them back and answer them. Yeah.
Sounds good. Thank you. I'll make a note. I don't see any additional questions coming in. So if you do have a question in the room, please feel free to raise your hand. So you can do that by clicking reactions and then raise hand. And I'll just wait a few more, maybe a minute or so to see if there's any final questions that are going to come through. Just wait, I see a comment that says office with a question mark. Just wondering if you can expand on what your question is a little bit. And in the meantime, I see Noni's hand raised. So Noni, I'll ask you to unmute now.
Hi, I'm just curious. I was attending the CASC meeting today, and the member Ollie from Alberta was asking about the ability of moving the cleanup of debris a little bit faster. It seems like all around us we see work going on in extended hours and weekends, but in Lytton, it's 9 to 5 and we shut her down, and it's like we got a nice slow pace, like if there was no emergency. So it would be really nice to know that there's some way to move things along a little faster now that all of your ducks are in a row we have extended daylight, and we have good conditions to move things along before the next highway closure hits us. So just saying that, I think there's a lot of people here wondering and wishing for a little quicker movement and a sense of emergency to match the state of emergency, I guess, is what I'm saying.
I could answer that, Jasmine. I think, Matt, if you could back me up, that would be great. I think there's a reality here that we were dealing with the uninsured parcels, and there were only so many uninsured parcels we could deal with. There's needs for heritage permits. There's only a limited number of staff within the heritage offices that could deal with them. And up till now, we had to move through the different zones because, in fact, there weren't enough lots for the equipment to work on. So it's not a matter of just taking the heavy equipment, moving in there and scraping off the debris and loading it into trucks and going. Every single lot needs to be examined as to heritage permit. Every single lot needs to be tested, both the debris and the soils. And so again, that work actually takes time. And so the progress today, I wish to correct you, Noni, it wasn't 9 to 5. They were doing the work that had to be done based on how many of the lots they could access. As the insurers now hopefully get the insured people to sign off on their lots, we can move through those areas, and MatCon can in fact staff up, and again, Matt, you can correct me if I'm wrong, and work and progress at a faster pace when they have lots they can actually clear, once all those other hurdles are raised. So it's not that people are sitting around idle, twiddling their thumbs because they have nothing better to do. They have to have all those things in place before they can remove that debris. And once we have more lots that people give us permission, people still have not done that, by the way, then we could start moving more equipment onto that site. Anything to add, Matt?
No, you really got everything there, Ron. It's waiting on the actual approvals from Heritage, which now that we do have it for our side of the works, the next step is the insured properties. And once those are approved to work on, we'll be able to just move through it.
Great. Thanks, Matt. And thanks, Ron. So a question came into the chat. So Leslie, maybe can you just repeat your comments on the establishment of an office, a village office in Lytton itself, like a bricks and mortar location? I think we just missed those.
So there is a report that'll be on the council agenda of June the 8th. So check out the website for that. There's 3 sites with 4 options that were identified, and there's been a business case outlined on each one of those options. The next step is for council to make a decision on which one of the sites that they would like to go further with, and then we would have to get funding in order to establish an office. So the sooner all that happens, the sooner there will be an office open physically in the village of Lytton.
Thanks, Leslie. All right, Denise, I see your hand up. I'm going to ask you to unmute now.
Hi, everyone. Oh, I'm a little squeaky too. So we've been working and reporting on the short-term recovery plan. I guess we didn't get it into place until November, but at what point do we start moving on to a medium-term plan or a longer-term plan to be working from? It feels like a long time we've been reporting on the short-term plan. Thank you.
Currently, I'll try to answer that question. Currently, we're working with Fraser Basin Council. We are putting together a conversation on a regional basis. And then from there, we'll move forward with getting the medium to long-term plan in place. So sometime in June, later to mid-June, we will be holding a regional meeting and then moving forward.
Great, thanks, Leslie. I do see someone has their hand raised on the phone. So I'm gonna ask you to unmute now.
Hello there, Paul here from 55 Main Street. I just wanted to get some of the recordings. I've missed a lot of what's been said over the last few months. Is that possible?
Yeah, absolutely. So all of the community meetings have been recorded and they're all posted to lytton.ca. So if you go, actually, I'm going to do this at the exact same time, so I'm not lying to you. Go to lytton.ca. And then if you click on news, which is right at the top there, you can scroll down to a section called community meetings, and all of the recordings will be posted there.
Okay, so say it again, lytton.ca.
Lytton.ca, and then click news at the top.
News.
And then about midway through, there's a header that says community meetings, and you can kind of scroll through all of those, and all of those meetings have been recorded that you can watch again.
Okay, thank you.
No problem. Okay, I don't see any more hands raised, but let me go back to the chat 1 second. Great. Okay, so I see just a follow-up. Maybe Mayor Polderman, can you repeat what you said about how the money from ATCO is going to be used? I think we just missed that.
Actually, I did not say how the money would be spent. The idea of the funds are to assist in the village's rebuild.
Great, thank you. Another question about the office. So there's a temporary office in Lytton available while a permanent, or is there going to be a temporary office in Lytton available while a permanent office is realized?
That's what the staff report next week will be about.
Yeah. Okay, great. So maybe after that time, we'll have a bit more information to share.
Yes.
Perfect. Thanks. Okay, I am not seeing any more questions come in. I will maybe wait another 30 seconds just in case we have a few last minute ones. Again, you can raise your hand if you like and speak out loud. All right, we have, oh, nope, never mind. No more hands raised. Okay, I'm not seeing any more questions come in. So maybe on that note, we'll start wrapping up. Alexis, if you can share the presentation again, we'll just talk about the next community meeting. Thank you so much for all of your questions and for being here with us today. So just to wrap up, please save the date for our next community meeting. That'll be our 8th community meeting. And that's going to be on July 14th at 5:30 p.m. So maybe just mark your calendars. I do see a hand raised. We do have a bit of time, so I'll ask you to unmute just before we do some closing remarks here. There you go. You should be able to speak now.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Yes, I was just wondering, you know, in other words, it's Robert Hanna here, and I am a Lytton. I do reside here in Lytton. Prior to the fire, after the fire, and I guess a good question I have is when was a timeline for some of these people to be moving back into temporary housing?
Thanks, Robert. Jack, would you be able to maybe speak to that a little bit around the timeline?
Sure. Maybe I'll start by saying, of the people we've spoken to, they're all housed right now, right? But for some of them, well, for many of them, they do want to get back to Lytton, which is the purpose for wanting to establish the interim housing site on Aspen Plainers. We do have a couple of people that have contacted us that are telling us that their current leases where they're currently residing expire in September. So in our minds, that's the time frame that we're looking at, is this fall, is September, to hopefully have the lease signed off and the interim housing in place.
Great. Thanks, Jack.
Thank you.
Okay, and I see just a question from Kevin asking about any formal plans for the 1-year anniversary event. So maybe I'll read what I have, and then if anybody else has additional information, please feel free to jump on in. I don't have too much, but I do believe there's going to be a community event on June 30th from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. at the Stein Valley School and the Battlefield. There's going to be a number of events. There's going to be visits from agencies, music and food. I believe the goal of this event is just to bring people together to sort of share their stories and move forward together. So yes, there is definitely a formal plan, and we encourage everybody to attend. So that'll be June 30th, starting at 10 a.m. Any additional information to add to that one? Oh, okay. Great. Okay, so maybe we'll just close up for the day. Thank you again so much for attending today's community meeting. We really do appreciate all of your questions and your feedback. There are a number of questions that we weren't able to answer today, so we'll take those back and follow up, and we'll get that Q&A posted to the website, lytton.ca, as soon as possible. However, if you do have any additional questions that maybe you think of later this week, you can always email communication@lytton.ca, or you can also email a member of the village team. So we're going to post that contact information in the chat. If you prefer to call, we also have a phone line, and that's 778-254-5004. And we'll post that in just a second here. But that does conclude today's meeting. Thank you all so much, and have a good night. Denise, I do see your hand up. I believe you probably have more information on the event, so I'll ask you to unmute here.
Actually, no, I don't, but I would like to comment on communications. Is there a way that we can have even an automatic reply from communications saying that they've received and forwarded our email? I've heard from a number of people through the Resiliency Center that they're not getting responses from their emails still, or it's taking a long time. And so they're wondering, have they even gone through? So if there's a way we could set up some kind of a response from communication saying that it's been received, I think that would be helpful.
Absolutely, Denise. I'll pass that feedback on to Yvonne from the communications team. I do believe there is an auto reply that you'll get sent if you do email it. I believe it says, we've received your email, and we'll get back to you as soon as possible. So if you aren't receiving that, that means your emails probably aren't coming through to us. One of the main reasons why we don't receive emails sometimes is because folks are emailing communications with an S at the end at lytton.ca, but the email address is actually communication, no S, at lytton.ca. So I'm just going to prop that into the chat here too. But I will, it could just be an error with the auto reply as well. So thank you for that feedback. I'll definitely pass it on to Yvonne and see if we can get that corrected.
Thank you.
All right. Okay. On that note, we'll wrap up the meeting. I'll drop in the links to all the contact information now, so you can copy and paste it. But that does conclude today's meeting. So thank you all for being here, and thank you to all of our resource folks here that provided us with information as well. Have a good night, everyone.
Thank you, Jasmine.
Thanks, Jasmine.
Thanks, everybody. Good night.
Say good night.